The Atlanta Hawks have made a move that quietly reshapes the trade market this offseason, and it could have major consequences for former Golden State Warriors forward Jonathan Kuminga. Atlanta agreed to bring back veteran guard C.J. McCollum on a one-year deal worth roughly $21 million, a decision that closes off any realistic path to clearing meaningful salary cap space. By locking that money in before free agency officially opens, the Hawks have signaled that whatever big swing they take next will almost certainly happen through a trade rather than a signing. And once that becomes the only avenue available, Kuminga's name moves closer to the center of the conversation. Hey, what's up, everyone? Before we jump into everything today, that like button right there is what decides if this video hits hundreds or thousands of people. 1 second is all it takes, but the impact on this channel is massive. Go ahead and hit that like button right now. Seriously, it's the simplest thing you can do, and honestly, the best way to back this content up because every single like pushes us further. So hit it now to understand why. It helps to remember how Kuminga ended up in Atlanta in the first place. He arrived as part of the package the Warriors sent out at the trade deadline to acquire Kristaps Porzingis, a deal that also moved Buddy Hield out of the Bay Area. For Golden State, that transaction was about getting a true floor-spacing big to play next to Stephen Curry. For Kuminga, it meant a fresh start with young, ascending Hawks roster built around Jalen Johnson. Now, only months later, the 22-year-old forward may already be on the move again, this time without having played a full season in Atlanta. According to salary cap analyst Yossi Goslin of Third Apron, the McCollum agreement leaves the Hawks sitting about $15.5 million below the luxury tax line with 13 players on the books, a group that still includes Kuminga's team option. The most powerful tool left in Atlanta's kit is a non-taxpayer mid-level exception, valued at around $15 million. That is useful for filling out a rotation, but it is not the kind of mechanism that lands a star. Anything truly transformative has to come from the trade market, and that is exactly where the Hawks have reportedly been active. Atlanta has already been linked to one of the summer's most dramatic possibilities, a blockbuster pursuit of Boston Celtics standout Jaylen Brown, a scenario that itself is tied to the swirling speculation around two-time MVP Giannis Antetokounmpo. If the dominoes fall in a way that brings Brown to Atlanta as part of a larger Antetokounmpo chain reaction, the financial math almost guarantees that Kuminga's $24.3 million team option will be folded into the framework to make the salaries line up. In other words, a deal Kuminga has nothing to do with on paper could end up determining his next address. McCollum himself is not immediately available to be dealt under the terms of his new contract, and he cannot be moved until midway through the season. That restriction is worth noting for later in the calendar, but for now it simply reinforces the idea that Kuminga, not McCollum, is the most flexible salary matching piece Atlanta currently holds. The Hawks do have other theoretical options. They could decline Kuminga's team option entirely and either negotiate a new, longer-term contract or allow him to walk into unrestricted free agency, where he would finally get to choose his own destination for the first time in his career. Yet both of those paths come with real downsides for Atlanta. Letting him leave for nothing would erase an asset, and signing him long-term would reduce the very trade flexibility the franchise seems intent on preserving. Reporting from Hoops Hype's Michael Scotto earlier in the week indicated the Hawks have already tested the market on Kuminga, which suggests the front office views him more as a movable chip than as an untouchable building block. For Kuminga, the human side of this is harder to ignore. He could realistically find himself on a third different team within a 6-month window, none of those moves coming by his own choice. That is the reality of life as a young player on a rookie-scale contract, but it lands with particular weight on someone whose 5-year career has rarely featured stable, clearly defined situations. Even in Atlanta, the former 7th overall pick was working as a reserve, and a similar role likely awaits him wherever he goes next if a trade materializes. There is a version of this story that could actually benefit him. Should he be routed to a contender as part of a 3- or 4-team Antetokounmpo deal, he might land somewhere with a clearer runway and a more defined identity, the kind of environment that has eluded him so far. A move alongside an established star could give his game the structure has lacked. The risk, however, is timing. Kuminga is set to reach unrestricted free agency next season if he does not sign an extension beforehand, And by the time that window arrives, the league may have cooled on the idea of him blossoming into a genuine star. From the Warriors' vantage point, this is now largely a story about the road not taken. Golden State chose immediate fit over long-term upside when it shipped Kuminga out for Porzingis, betting on a win-now configuration around Curry. Watching their former forward become a trade market pawn elsewhere only underlines how decisively the franchise turned the page and how quickly the rest of the league has moved on from the player they once hoped he might become. While the wider league spent the offseason untangling star trade scenarios, the Golden State Warriors are facing a quieter but equally important problem. The center position is suddenly full of question marks. Of all the roster decisions Golden State must sort through this summer, sorting out who anchors the middle of the floor may be the most consequential because it directly shapes how the team can build around Stephen Curry for another season. The headline name is Kristaps Porzingis, who is heading into unrestricted free agency. Alongside him, veteran big man Al Horford holds a player option and sits at a stage of his career where retirement or a change of scenery cannot be ruled out, leaving his choice genuinely uncertain. Quinton Post adds another layer of doubt as a restricted free agent whose long-term place in the rotation is not guaranteed. Put together, the Warriors could enter the draft with very little settled at the 5, which is precisely why the latest signals around Porzingis matter so much. Encouragingly for Golden State, momentum appears to be building toward a new agreement with Porzingis. ESPN's Anthony Slater reported that the franchise has stayed firmly committed to re-signing the Latvian big man, and barring a rival swooping in with an unexpected long-term offer, the Warriors look like the clear favorites to keep him for the 2026-27 campaign. That tracks with how the organization handled the back half of last season, when it was obvious they were determined to keep Porzingis on the floor and integrate it into the game plan whenever possible. His production during that stretch tells a layered story. Across 15 games in a Golden State uniform, Porzingis posted averages of 16.1 points, 5.3 rebounds, and 2.3 assists, numbers that confirm he can still carry real offensive responsibility. The shaky part was his perimeter accuracy, as he connected on just 31.1% of his three-point attempts during that span. The optimistic read is that his shooting touch, which has historically been far better than that figure, should bounce back toward his career norms. If it does, his value as a stretch big who can pull opposing centers away from the rim climbs dramatically, and that is the exact archetype Golden State has chased for years to complement Curry. Securing some internal certainty about Porzingis before draft night does more than stabilize the rotation. It also quietly opens an intriguing door at pick number 11, where the Warriors hold their selection. Specifically, it could make Hannes Steinbach of the University of Washington a far more sensible gamble than he would be for a team desperate to plug a starter into the lineup immediately. Steinbach is an unusual prospect away because his strengths and limitations are both pronounced. He is widely regarded as perhaps the finest rebounding prospect in class, using his size, relentless motor, and refined footwork to seal defenders off the glass on one end and chase down long caroms on the other. He is far from a one-dimensional player either. Although he lacks a polished jumper, his interior scoring is genuinely impressive, built on clean footwork and a smoothness operating in the paint that hints at a long NBA future as a true center. The catch is shooting. Steinbach is not known as a floor spacer, and that is normally where the fit with Golden State gets complicated, since the Warriors prize bigs who can stretch the defense. This is where the Porzingis variable becomes so important. With an established floor spacing center already in place, the Warriors would not need Steinbach to provide perimeter gravity right away. He shot 34% on a modest sample of 53 attempts during his lone college season, enough to suggest a jumper is not hopeless, just unfinished. Given time and a low-pressure developmental runway, that shot could mature. There will certainly be teams treating this class as a chance to find a day one starting center, particularly any club that can get its hands on a Day Mar out of Michigan. The Warriors, by contrast, would have the luxury of patience. Porzingis, and possibly Horford if he returns, could absorb the heavy minutes while Steinbach learns a professional game without being thrown into the fire. Golden State simply could not afford to hand a rookie the keys to the center position on a roster still oriented around winning now. But they would not have to. There is a certain irony baked into the plan. Re-signing one center on the surface which seemed to reduce the need to draft another. In reality, the opposite may be true. By guaranteeing themselves a reliable starter in Porzingis, the Warriors create the safety net required to take a developmental swing on a high-upside big like Steinbach, betting that 2 or 3 seasons of seasoning turns him into the player many evaluators believe he can become. In a summer defined by uncertainty up and down the roster, that is a kind of forward-looking move that lets Golden State address the present and the future at once, keeping Curry's championship window open while planting a seed for what comes after it. Sometimes the most telling moves in an off-season are the ones a team does not make, and the Golden State Warriors just watched a quietly appealing option disappear before they could act. Aaron Wiggins, a versatile 6'5" wing who had emerged as an underrated fit for Golden State, is on his way to the Atlanta Hawks after the Oklahoma City Thunder agreed to trade him on Sunday. For the Warriors, who have been weighing ways to upgrade their wing depth, it is a reminder that the market does not wait for anyone. According to ESPN's Shams Charania, the Thunder are finalizing a deal that sends Wiggins to Atlanta in exchange for 2 second-round picks, specifically the Hawks' own selection in 2030 and the less favorable the Hawks or Lakers picks in 2032. The trade gives Atlanta another reliable perimeter shooter to surround ascending star Jalen Johnson, deepening a young roster that has been busy reshaping itself this summer. From Oklahoma City's perspective, the modest return tells its own story about why the move happened. The Thunder were operating under real financial pressure, with massive extensions for Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams kicking in. The reigning regular season juggernaut needs to trim salary wherever it reasonably can. Wiggins became an obvious candidate to be moved after his role shrank in the postseason, where he logged just 5.8 minutes across 13 playoff appearances. When a rotation player slides that far down the depth chart on a deep roster, his departure starts to feel inevitable, and Oklahoma City was clearly content to let Atlanta absorb the contract in exchange for a pair of distant, low-value seconds. That low cost is exactly what made Wiggins so intriguing for a team like Golden State. This was not a fringe contributor. During the regular season, he averaged close to 22 minutes per night and made 21 starts for the top-seeded Thunder, producing 9.4 points, 3.1 rebounds, and 1.7 assists while shooting 43.6% from the field and a healthy 35.6% from three-point range. The year before, he posted a career-best 12.0 points per game, and across his career he has knocked down roughly 38% of his long-range attempts. That is a proven cost-control wing who can space the floor and defend multiple positions, the type of player championship-level rotations covet. For the Warriors specifically, the 27-year-old profiled as a logical answer to a pressing need. With Moses Moody recovering from a long-term knee injury, Golden State has a clear opening for a dependable wing who can soak up minutes and provide outside shooting. Wiggins could have filled that Moody-shaped void seamlessly, offering continuity on the perimeter while the former 14th overall pick works his way back to health. Instead, the Warriors will have to look elsewhere now that Atlanta has scooped him up. There had been genuine chatter, particularly across social media, about whether Wiggins might surface in a scenario where the Warriors trade back from their pick. Golden State holds the 11th selection in Tuesday's draft, while the Thunder control both the 12th and 17th choices in the first round, a setup that fueled speculation about a possible swap involving draft capital and a young rotation piece like Wiggins. That particular dream is now off the table, but the underlying logic behind it has not vanished. Even with Wiggins gone, Oklahoma City remains one of the more compelling potential trade partners for the Warriors heading into and during draft night. Golden State has openly explored moving around the draft board, and the Thunder, flush with picks and motivated to manage their cap sheet, fit the profile of a team willing to deal. There is a clear path to a conversation, even if its exact shape has changed. One name worth monitoring is Isaiah Joe, a similarly valued role player who could plausibly be made available given the same salary considerations that push Wiggins out the door. The 26-year-old averaged around 21 minutes during the regular season before his playing time was scaled back significantly in the playoffs, a trajectory that mirrors the circumstances surrounding Wiggins. If Oklahoma City continues shedding rotation salary, Joe represents another shooter who could appeal to a Golden State team hunting for perimeter help on a reasonable contract. History also hints that the two front offices speak the same language. The Warriors have repeatedly tapped the Thunder pipeline in recent years, trading for Lindy Waters III in 2024 and later adding Malavi Leons on a two-way contract after Oklahoma City moved on from him. That familiarity does not guarantee a deal, but it does establish a working relationship and a track record of finding common ground, which matters when the clock is ticking on draft night. So while losing out on Wiggins stings as a missed opportunity, it is better understood as one closed door in a hallway that still has several open. The Warriors entered this stretch looking to add shooting and wing depth around their core, and the Thunder remain positioned to help him do exactly that. The specific target may have changed, but the broader pursuit and the most logical partner to complete it are very much still in play as Golden State prepares for a pivotal few days.